Hey, what's up everybody? In today's video, we're gonna be working on the Dodge Dakota RT. It has the 5.9 liter Magnum engine, and we're gonna be starting the process of putting our M1 Mopar intake on the truck. So I showed you guys that intake on the last video. We have a whole host of mods going onto this truck. So I have to get the intake manifold off of this, and we are going to get ready to put that M1 on there. So all this has to come out. I'm gonna walk you guys through that whole process. I don't think we'll get to actually putting it in because I'm still waiting for the gaskets to arrive, but I'll show you guys the process of getting that all done. I have the M1 intake manifold sitting here. If you guys didn't see the last video, it has a Excel 1350 CFM throttle body on the top. We got our bracketry. I still have to install the posts for the cables. If I wanted to do the 2-barrel conversion, I have that bracket there as well. We have brand new Mopar bolts for the intake manifold, but like I said, I'm still waiting on a couple more pieces. There are gonna be some things that we're gonna have to attend to as well. Vacuum ports, some other stuff of that nature, and I also have to figure out where we're gonna put the map sensor on this whole thing. So I have some other stuff as well, but like I said, all that, I will tell you guys exactly how I'm setting that up, but I don't know how far we're gonna get because we have to get that whole mess out of there. I've got a bucket ready. I have to drain the coolant. So let's get working. On the bottom of this rad is actually a little nipple that you can shove a hose onto and crack that loose and divert it straight into a bucket of some sort so we don't have too much mess. Let me get this up a little bit, show you guys what I'm talking about. Drain the coolant. So here's what I'm talking about. On the back side of the rad, you'll see this right here. So you can put a hose on like I attached to this bucket, and then we're gonna turn that little valve open to open up our coolant and drain it into our bucket. It's gonna be quite a bit of capacity, so get yourself something that's gonna be able to catch it all. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that and let this out. So you might have to use a little bit of pliers or something to turn that, because unless you have gorilla fingers, it is a little bit hard to turn. She's draining. And you'll have to release your rad cap, otherwise it'll kind of just vacuum itself. There we go, now we got some light. So while the coolant drains, we're gonna go ahead and start ripping stuff off. Intake's gonna come off, so let's get that off. And I'm gonna have to, like I said, move some of these accessories out of the way. So let's get going. All right, so while you saw me working away, we disconnected the battery, we removed the wires and connections from the back of the alternator. I took off the rest of the intake. I also started taking off a couple of the supporting brackets. I'm going to remove the bolts on the AC compressor, and I'm also gonna have to remove the bracket, accessory bracket that also kind of holds all this stuff in. I'm just gonna remove the alternator entirely. It's only 2 bolts holding it in. And like I said, we'll loosen up some of these bolts, and we'll just keep plugging away at it, and I'll keep letting you guys know what I'm doing as you guys see it being done. So here's kind of the next stage where we're at. So I just swung the AC compressor out of my way. The lines are still connected. I didn't have to discharge the system or anything like that. So that's over here. I just unplugged it. There's just 2 wires on the AC compressor, the one for the clutch and the one for the actual pressure sensor. So this bracket also does have to come off. So I'm gonna have to remove the bolts on the front. I'll let you guys know which bolts I'll have to take out. As far as the AC compressor, one other side note, this one bolt's over here. They're all 13 mil head bolts, but you can't really, I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can't really get it out without it hitting the line. So I did have to use a wrench on just that one there. So let me go ahead and remove this bracket, and we can start getting in a little bit deeper on this thing, because we're still gonna have to get to, there's a hose connection that runs underneath this bracket, so this bracket has to come off as well. All right, so this is definitely a good time to show you guys what's going on. So again, AC compressor's here, and this bracket is finally loose and ready to come out. You're gonna have 2 bolts here, so 1, 2. There's gonna be one underneath the idler pulley that goes here, so that's 3. You're gonna have 4 here, 5 there, and then this is number 6. So I managed to keep this in place going to my water pump because I really didn't want to have to deal with this. Looks like somebody's had some sort of RTV or something to seal this up, so I didn't want to have to deal with pulling this out and having a big coolant mess, but I'm sure we're gonna have a coolant mess here soon enough anyways. So this is going to come out of here, and we can place it over here with our bolts that are for all that. And this is the nice ugly mess we're left with afterwards. It's almost like you want to pressure wash this thing. That is nasty. So it does look like somebody put some new components on here because this stuff's pretty shiny. I think it must have got a new water pump at some point. Looks like it got a new lower radiator hose. Anyways, it's got cobwebs, got nasty stuff. Before we actually unbolt the manifold, the intake manifold, I think I'll probably cleaning up all that stuff. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step. So I'm going to remove some of these. I guess we can swing out. This is our alternator cable. So I'll swing this out of our way. That's out of our way. There is a host of hoses, sensors, all that stuff. So obviously you guys, you're gonna have to remove a lot of this stuff. We'll unplug everything, unplug all of our injectors, all that good stuff. So we'll squeeze a lot of these connections, pull a lot of them off, and we can get our wiring harnesses out of the way. So I'm just gonna run through this stuff. A lot of these, like this one, I can just pull off the intake manifold. That one's got a little clip that I'll have to remove. I'm just gonna disconnect a bunch of hoses, kind of self-explanatory. Just disconnect anything that's connected to the intake manifold and start moving it out of our way so we can gain access to it. Here's this hose out of the way, and I'll work through it and I'll tell you guys where I'm at with the next step. So that's pretty much it for wiring. One thing I'll show you is you can see that the harness is over here, and I did unplug it from the coil pack because this one wire was coming out of the coil pack. It runs along here and leads down. So if you unplug it from the coil pack, you can remove all that wiring and tuck it up out of your way like I did. Only thing I haven't touched is the cables, which I'll show you in just a second why. And moving over to this side, everything's pretty much out of the way. Same thing, I removed the wire harness out of the valley. I pulled it over here. I did have to disconnect, I think it's right here, yeah, these two grounds, which went to one of these power steering bolts, along with the negative wire or lead from the battery. So just keep that in mind. I took that one out, which is also attached to these, so that I could pull all of this out and out of my way on the other side of the valve cover. And most of it's out. Like I said, I'm gonna clean this up just so no junk falls down once we remove this. Probably shop vac whatever I can. Then I'll probably use the air nozzle, but that'll make sure that no junk is gonna fall down. It's a little bit dirty over here because we did have oil leaks, like you guys probably saw if you've been following for a little while. But I did wanna show you this. So we have a few different cables. This one is our cruise control. So this one on this side, this one is our throttle cable, and then this one is the TV cable that goes to the transmission. So kick down cable, it's called a few different things. One thing you do wanna pay attention to if you're going to be swapping to a different throttle body like I am is you want to make sure this has the correct amount of throw. That's why I had the tape measure out. I wanted to see what the range of motion or travel was. It looks to be about 1.25 inches on mine from it being at this position, and with the throttle wide open, that change in distance is about 1.25 inches on mine. Double check what yours is, because when I connect everything up to this one, I'm going to need to make sure that it is pretty similar, so if not identical. Once I get it on, I'll be able to assess that, but I have to make sure that when it pulls it, that it's pulling it pretty much the same amount of distance. That way the transmission knows what we're doing with the throttle pedal so that it can, you know, shift gears accordingly and all that good stuff. So I'll go ahead and I'll take these all off and we'll go to the next step. And if you're wondering how all these cables come off, they simply just slide off. They're a peg that looks like that, and you just have to slide them in the opposite direction. So they'll have a little slit in the end of it in the opposite direction that it's pulling, and you just slide it off. So they all look the same. They all just go in their different respective spots. And then we can unclip them from the bracket, since, like I said, we're gonna be moving everything over to the other bracket. Next up, you'll see the Schrader valve here, kind of like a car type valve, and hopefully yours has a cap on it. Mine does not, but there's gonna be some fuel pressure in here, so I'm just gonna put a rag over top of it, release the pressure so that I can get my actual fuel line off. So I'm gonna go ahead and release the fuel pressure right here with this, and then we can disconnect the line. Okay, before I go too much further, I'm gonna go ahead and shop back around here and just get rid of all the cobwebs and any big chunks of any junk around there as well, so that nothing falls in. Okay, so I vacuumed. I'm gonna take the air hose and just blow out any junk out of the way. And I'm actually just gonna swing my fuel rail and injectors out of the way right now, because I don't have the tool to disconnect that over there. So I'll wait till tomorrow till I pick one up, but for now, we'll keep working. So these have to come out anyways, and I'm gonna be reusing the stock rails. So I'm gonna wiggle this out, I'll swing it over there, so then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so my fuel rail is swung over there. Just be conscious of any O-rings that didn't make it out with your injectors like that one, so that you don't lose them and that you don't have a leak afterwards. So definitely just keep an eye out for that, or you might even be replacing them. We're gonna be getting a set of upgraded injectors here shortly, so I'm probably gonna be reusing this, to be honest with you, because we're gonna be getting a set of new injectors to go along with some boost here shortly. Next up, I'm gonna remove our 3 water lines. So 1, 2, and 3. So let's get those off. Okay, hoses are off. This one right here, I'm just gonna leave on until I get the intake up and I can kind of tip it up out of there, because that one's short and I would just want to free it up once I kind of have that up and out of the way. So I'm gonna remove all the bolts that are holding the kegger on, and then we'll hopefully remove it fairly straightforward. All right, so all of our intake manifold bolts are out, and this should be the last step of taking the kegger out. So I'm gonna go ahead, it's probably gonna have some sort of silicone or RTV in the corners, so it might be a little bit stuck, but we'll pry it up and get it out of there. The kegger is on the ground, and this is what it looks like. So one thing to mention is a lot of guys have said make sure you cover the ports with something, because you don't want to be dropping anything in there, otherwise it creates a nightmare. Just be warned on that. And over here, this is the gasket that goes bad on most people's. So underneath here, this is like the plenum gasket on the bottom, and that gasket fails and then lets oil go into your intake manifold. So that's a lot of the problem that most people have, is this gasket fails and then it ends up putting oil into their intake, which then puts oil into the engine and burns it, so on and so forth. So anyways, that thing's pretty heavy, honestly. Like, not crazy heavy, but in comparison to that one that's gonna be going on. I'm gonna go ahead, like I said, my gaskets haven't showed up yet, but that's the removal process. I'm gonna pull off these gaskets and I can start getting everything prepped for the new gaskets and the new intake to go on. So I was actually looking as well, and it does look like these are Fel Pro gaskets. So someone was in here before, probably fixed a similar leak. But anyways, we're not gonna be using any of that stuff, and I'm gonna have a separate video for you guys showing this whole intake that I'm gonna be putting in there. But it's quite a process. So I'm gonna clean this up for you guys. So what I ended up doing was I put paper towels in there, I put paper towels in the valley. That way, any of this junk, the gasket material, is still stuck to our heads. I'm gonna clean it off with one of these flat razors, just working it down like that. Get it all cleaned up. It looks like it's not gonna take too much work to get off, but I don't want it falling in any of these openings. So I'm gonna clean those up. All right, so we got all our ports cleaned up, removed a ton of gasket material, and I've already changed out those paper towels, so you just kind of want to keep them there. Make sure that anything that you're cleaning, scraping, whatever off isn't falling into here. As you can see, this is all clean. So I was just tucking this underneath there, so that anything that fell, I was trying to scoop it and scrape it up so that I could get it out of the way, but if any of it fell on top of my paper towel, because I had it all tucked in like that, and then I lifted all that junk out, and then I put a new paper towel in so that we're ready to go. So like I was mentioning though, I am waiting on some gaskets, so that's gonna pretty much do it for this video, and let's wrap things up. Okay, so like I said, I have to order some odds and ends. I have the intake here. I have to kind of assemble it. I do want to clean it because it's been sitting around for a little bit. So I want to clean out, make sure there's no dust or any debris or dirt inside. I'm gonna get this all prepped up. Like you can see, I kind of have to get some of the fittings. I have the fitting removed here. I have to find something that's gonna tighten that because it has this weird kind of groove here. So I wanna make sure that that's gonna seal up. So I'm gonna get this all prepped. Like I said, I'm still waiting for my intake manifold gaskets, and hopefully we can get this thing on here. So I'll have a separate video for you guys installing that. But if you were gonna be changing your plenum gasket, or maybe you were playing with the kegger, that's how you get it off, and then I'll obviously show you guys my install once that comes. So anyways guys, thanks for watching. Definitely make sure you give this video a thumbs up. You guys have been killing it with the thumbs ups lately and make sure you like the video. So let's keep that momentum going because it does help the videos. And we'll see you guys on the next video when we install that new intake. So thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.